This show is clean, pretty much.
Mike's Daily Podcast.
Episode 660. Hello, it's Mike Matthews broadcasting from the last place on earth, located somewhere in Podcastro Valley, California. Today, Chely Shoehart, Floyd the Floorman, John Deere the engineer, plus the return of the much-loved feature, Do You Know DAT, where we look at some interesting health tips and stories. And speaking of which, yeast. It isn't just for bread or infections anymore.
Mike's Daily Podcast.
We'll find out more about that story. And I know you're saying, Mike, please give me more.
Mike's Daily Podcast.
So I will. Last show, we traveled to Minnesota, and that's where we went to get a soda. The lamest lyrics that you have ever heard right now. Hey, that's cool. Put a bird on it. I love Portlandia.
Mike's Daily Podcast.
Yes, we went not to Portland, but to Minnesota because Bison Bentley wanted to meet someone with a Minnesota accent.
Mike's
so that he could learn
Daily
a Minnesota accent.
Podcast.
But then I met Garrison Keeler.
Yeah!
And he cussed, and we got the out of there. It was a fascinating show. Go back and listen to it. It was yesterday's. It was 659. It was fantastic. So this past weekend, Noah was #1 in the box office, and that's just so interesting. First, let's hear it for Darren Aronofsky for finally having a #1 movie. He's done The Wrestler, Requiem for a Dream, one of my favorites, Pi. That was a trip. Oh, Black Swan, The Fountain. You've probably heard the big story is that Christians, the really, really fundamentalist ones, are like, hey, this movie is blasphemy. It's not true to what it says in the Bible. And this is coming from people that don't want to imagine Jesus as Jewish. They want him to be played by a Gentile actor. Hollywood takes liberties. So that is the second biblical movie this year after Son of God. And later on we'll have Exodus, a 3D epic based on Moses from director Ridley Scott. Look, I'll be honest, I was one of those people that when that Mel Gibson Jesus movie came out, I was just, come on, it's too violent, too much blood. It looked like a Mel Gibson bloodlust movie, which he loves to do, as we found out with that other movie he did, that Apocalypto, majorly violent, keeping in theme with the phone call to his ex-girlfriend. And Mel Gibson sure wanted Jesus to be Jewish because he hired Jim Caviezel to be Jesus, who is part Swiss, part Irish. Something else that also happened this weekend, I was watching C-SPAN 3, where they talk about history. And they actually had the guy that invented the cell phone, the main name attributed to the cell phone, Martin Cooper. He was with Motorola. And it was fascinating listening to him talk. He has this idea that the smartphone is not all that fantastic because it's so complicated to learn. The instructions and then figuring it out, you know how difficult smartphones can be. And he's like, all that we were doing back in the day when we were working on this cell phone, they worked on it for like 15 years before they even tried to sell anything. I think the company didn't even release anything, didn't even sell anything. All it did was research and development for like 15 years. It's fascinating. Watch it. It's on cspan.org somewhere. And he said that all that they were concerned with was making it as simple as possible. Of course, the first cell phone was as big as a brick and about 2 pounds. And the battery lasted 20 minutes, and it cost $4,000 each. But it was all about, he said, we were all concerned about making it, and each prototype got smaller and smaller and smaller, and things really started to advance once they got going. And he goes, today, it's like as if we've made things more complicated. The smartphone does a lot, yeah, but it's complicated to learn. He said that his wife is also an engineer and a designer, And she came up with a very simple phone, easy to operate. It doesn't have all the smartphone bells and whistles, but it's really easy. You just take it. And he goes, what's the main thing you do on a smartphone or on a cell phone is you talk to people. And somebody raised their hand in the audience and said, no, we text. And some guy raised his hand and said, I listen to music. That's the number one thing I use my phone for. And he laughed and he said, no, it's supposed to be talking. And he said, we need to get back to the idea of making things work for people, which made me think, you know what? The younger generation that we always say, oh my gosh, they're so obsessed with their smartphones. Their brains are on autopilot. They're not watching where they're going when they got the smartphone in their hand. The fact of the matter is they learned very quickly all these very complicated things that we're producing. And so in some ways, they're the smartest generation. There you go. You're welcome. Here's how Martin Cooper described smartphones.
They are difficult to use. They break one of my fundamental principles. Think about what is technology. Technology is the application of science to make products and services that make the lives of people better. If it doesn't make your life better, it's not good technology. So the best technology is technology that does things for you and you don't even know it's there. And then we've got Steve Jobs and Bill Gates come along and they create all these amazing tools, but in order to use these tools, you have to become an engineer. I don't think that's very good technology. And I don't think putting us all in the same box, so everybody uses an Android phone or an Apple, and there's not much difference between those interfaces. That's a presumption I don't agree. I think we're all different from each other, and we ought to have the ability of designing our own phone, whatever we would like. If you want a small phone, you can have a small one, big one. All of these things ought to be intuitive. We ought to be able to use them without using this instruction manual. Have you ever looked? The instruction manual for most phones today is bigger than the phone and heavier. So we are starting to move in that direction.
That's a negative endorsement for the smartphone. Okay.
I'm sorry?
I was just kidding. That's a negative endorsement of the smartphone.
Oh, that's a negative endorsement of the smartphone. That's a negative. God, the moderators for these C-SPAN things suck. They're the worst interviewers. Jeez. But, you know, they've got a big name, a big PhD after their name, so they get to host these things. Not that I'm jealous or anything. That would be fun to interview people on stage like that. Oh, look who just walked in. Hello, Mike Matthews. Chely Shoehart, the Kip Staff Supervisor. Thanks for calling my generation really smart. Yeah, you guys are smart. You know, I think smartphones are really complicated. I know how to, call someone. I know how to text people. I know how to access the emojis. You know how to access the emojis? Yeah, Mike Matthews, that's, really important. Uh-huh. So, I'm all set. Good for you. Look who else just walked in. Hello, Mike. This is Floyd the Floorman. And this is John Deere, the engineer, Mike. We've built a ark out in the parking lot of the last place on Earth. You did? Any particular reason? Well, we saw that movie, that Noah movie, and we got really inspired. Yeah, I think that Russell Crowe is amazing. I always thought he'd make a good Noah someday. I'm Floyd the Floorman. Yeah, you are. So, yeah, look at all the big roles Russell Crowe's had lately. He was Jor-El. He was Noah. He was a beautiful mind guy. He's a very important actor from Australia. Yes, Mike, that is why we had to get two of him to put in the ark to save mankind before the deluge. I thought it was deluge. Mike, that's what I thought too, because I'm Floyd the Floorman. Quit telling everybody who you are. They understand by your voice who you are. No, they don't. I could be Homer. Well, you're not. Yeah, well, so you've got two Russell Crowes. I didn't know there were two. I didn't either. But we tracked the second one down and put him in the ark in the parking lot You like to say, why don't you just call it the arcing lot? I wanted to, but I didn't know if you'd be okay with that. I'm so okay with that. Continue. Yeah, so we got 2 Russell Crowes. What else do you have in your arc, in the arcing lot? Do you have 2 Jennifer Connollys? Yeah. I'm going to go on that arc. Bye. Wow, Floyd, I think we made Mike Matthews' dreams come true. Yeah, that's really great. Chely, are you jealous that he's gone to be with the 2 Jennifer Connollys? No, I'm fine with that. I'm not romantically involved with Mike Matthews. Yes, we know that. We realize that. Yeah. Well, this is the first time the 3 of us have been alone together. It's kind of weird. I don't know what to talk about. I need the floor in my gift shop mopped. Can you do that for me, soon? Yeah, well, the deluge is going to take care of that. The what? The deluge! You mean the deluge? That's right. Oh, thank God. Yeah, I'm back. That was really going nowhere. You guys totally went off script. Yeah, it was fun. Yeah, don't do that again. So, this is interesting. That's more interesting than the whole cell phone NOAA thing we were talking about just a second ago. They have found a chromosome. By they, I mean an international team of scientists. They have built a modified yeast chromosome from scratch. The latest step in the quest to make the world's first synthetic yeast genome. An advance that would lead to new strains of the organism to help produce industrial chemicals, medicines, and biofuels, according to IOL.co. Instead of just copying nature, the team did extensive tinkering with their chromosome, deleting unwanted genes here and there. Once they put this into the yeast, and the living yeast cells, it will endow them with new capabilities not found naturally in yeast. And they say it is the most extensively altered chromosome ever built. Zounds! While other teams have synthesized bacterium and viral DNA, this is the first report of a synthetic chromosome in a eukaryote, an organism whose cells contain a nucleus like human cells. The achievement, which took 7 years, involved the use of computer-aided design to construct one of 16 chromosomes in brewer's yeast, known scientifically as Saccharomyces cerevisiae. The scientists say their work in the lab is much less like playing God and more akin to genetic engineering, but on a broader scale. And having the ability to produce new synthetic strains of yeast could result in some very useful types of yeast that could be used to make rare medicines, such as artemisinin for malaria, or certain vaccines, including for hepatitis B, which is derived from yeast. And synthetic yeast could also be used to make more efficient biofuels, such as alcohol, butanol, and biodiesel. When I was in Germany in 2009, you could put biodiesel, or as they say, biodiesel, in your car at just about every gas station. And I almost put it into the diesel engine of my car that I was renting, which would have destroyed it. And I have heard 2 stories of Americans in Germany doing that, exactly that, putting biodiesel into a regular diesel car, not knowing. And I'm so glad I didn't do that. I was thinking about it, and then I didn't. And then when I got to my destination and saw, actually, the girl you hear at the beginning of the show that's a Mike's Daily Podcast, that's the my second cousin, her dad. I asked him if I would have done that, if that would have destroyed the car, and he was like, "Oh yes, that was close." Yes, Mike, I'm glad you were smarter than that. Yeah. If you were around, you could have told me not to do that, but nobody was there that was smarter than you. Not even me. Yes, I am quite smart. I like to put yeast in my bread. Rarely do I play around with the chromosomes in my yeast. Why not? Because usually I'm hungry and I just want the bread. Oh, well, what do you think about this whole fantastic advance in technology with the yeast? Email me, MIKEs-DAILY-PODCAST@gmail.com. I read your comments on the section emails from email. Also email me there if you'd like to be a guest on the show or if you'd like to sponsor the show, MIKEs-DAILY-PODCAST@gmail.com. Hey, we're also on the web, MIKEs-DAILY-PODCAST.com. Check out the website. Got lots of Mike's Daily Podcast players to listen to the show on. And there's also links to where to listen to us on iTunes. Please subscribe to the show on iTunes. And when I post a new show, you will have it downloaded. It's wonderful. And there's also a link to where to listen to us on Stitcher. By the way, Stitcher has updated their app for your smartphones so that you can now, or whatever phone, smartphones are cool, regardless of what Martin Cooper thinks. Because, dang it, you can listen to podcasts through them. And Stitcher, have updated their app to make it a lot more easy to listen to podcasts. So kudos to them for doing that. You can listen to the show on the Stitcher Radio app. I think it's Stitcher Radio On Demand app. That's what they're calling it now. And then there is also links to where to catch us on Facebook, the Facebook page. Like this show on Facebook, and when I post a new show, share it with your friends so that more people find out about us. There's also links to where to find us on YouTube, Twitter, Yelp, SoundCloud, Spreaker, Mixcloud, and we also have the Amazon deal of the day. Click on that and buy something. It's a great way to support the show, and you get something at a discount because it's the deal of the day. The blog and the daily podcast picture also at MIKEs-DAILY-PODCAST.com.
It's Bison Bentley's Do You Know Dat?
Hey, this is Bison Bentley, and Mike Matthews has a couple of stories that'll make you want to ask yourself, do you know that? Do you know that? Do you know that? Do you know that? It is a question that Bison Bentley asks a lot. And this is where we tell you about some things that you probably don't know about that are fascinating. And these are some cool stories that have to do with health. There are a lot of things that men have that women may go, I wish I had that. Weight loss is stacked in favor of men. That's not fair. On account of differences in hormones, metabolism, and muscle mass. This according to health.com. Thanks to a biological edge, think more testosterone, which helps build muscle, which in turn helps burn more calories. Men will lose 1 to 2 more pounds a week than women who are the same age and starting weight if they're following the same routine. So here are some things that men do that women should follow, some helpful health tips that men use that women should possibly follow. One is, while it sounds like a half-hearted attempt at dieting, like I'll pass up late-night Dominoes, this simple move can be a good way to potentially drop 20 or more pounds in a year if you cut out one treat. When a diet is padded with calories from one thing, eliminating it can lead to immediate weight loss. Instead of dumping an entire food category like carbs or sugar, just remove a single indulgent item. Burritos, soda, ice cream, to target the true waist expander. Keep a record of what you eat for a few days. See what foods or beverages are adding up that could easily be omitted. Maybe you're sucking down a vanilla latte at every coffee break. Trading it for a herbal tea or an unsweetened cappuccino with skim milk will wipe out calories without making you feel deprived. The male sex is wise to a fitness tactic that science recently confirmed. Short bursts of vigorous exercise known as high-intensity interval training, or HIIT, dramatically boost the body's calorie-torching abilities. HIIT workouts change you on a genetic level. You're challenging your muscles and your metabolism and pushing the volume of oxygen in the lungs, driving up calorie burn. A 2012 study at Colorado State University found that people who worked out on a stationary bike for less than 25 minutes with just a few sprints mixed in torched an additional 200 calories a day due to an afterburn effect. Now, men like the paleo diet. Practitioners of the paleo diet assert that modern-day foods loaded with sugar, grains, and vegetable oils are making us fat and must be nixed. The biggest change you make with paleo and similar diets is getting rid of processed foods and sugars. The caveman diet is very restrictive, and few dietitians recommend doing it whole hog. Instead, adopt one of the following paleo changes to reap rewards. 1. Stick to good fats like olive oil, coconut oil, and avocados. 2. Eat the right carbohydrates. You need carbs for energy, so pick just the good ones. Sweet potatoes, winter squash, fruit. 3. Have protein at every meal. It's great for weight loss, and it really helps with anxiety. Also, there's a mountain of science and scientific literature showing that nothing is more effective at keeping body fat down than strength training. Men love to lift weights, right? Well, muscle tissue is more metabolically active than fat. More muscle will help you burn more calories, even when you're lounging around post-gym. Do exercises that use your body weight for resistance, like push-ups and planks, while you're watching TV. Finally, another thing that men do that could help out women is that men are very competitive. Men are raised in a gladiatorial culture. Everything they do is framed as a battle to be won. Well, athletes who are competitively oriented push 5 to 10% harder during a challenge versus when they're working out alone. You can earn the dividends of competition merely by working out with a friend. Researchers from Michigan State University found that women who exercised on a stationary bike with a virtual pal, shown on a TV screen, went 11 minutes longer than those who pedaled alone. You can even compete against yourself. Set what is known as performance goals, specific, actionable aims, such as doing 5 more crunches each day, adding distance to your run each week, or eating 3 servings of vegetables with every meal.
Advice for the young at heart. Soon we will be older. When we gonna make it work?
All right, here's some advice for the young at heart, which is you, right? So here's all kinds of advice from all over the web and different doctors who chimed in. One, Dr. Bergen, he has said to help your back, sit like a man. Another thing that men do, sit like them. He says, if I see 100 patients with pain under the kneecaps or along the outside of the hips, 99 of them are women. While body mechanics play a role in this, it's also because women are taught to sit with their legs together. Sitting with your legs slightly apart takes tension off the iliotibial band, our longest tendon, which can cause hip and knee pain when it's too tight. Some other tips that were picked out by health.com are Carolyn Kaufman, RDN, says, I make sure to get my greens at lunch by preparing all my salads on Sunday in 1-quart wide-mouthed canning jars. It all stays fresh, even with dressing, thanks to gravity. Here's how you put it together. Put it in this order. First, on the bottom of the jar, dressing, then whole grains or hearty vegetables like broccoli, then chopped veggies like onions or fennel, and then the leafy greens, followed by chopped apples, cheese, or walnuts. At the office, just shake it up and dump it onto a plate. Well, be careful, don't shake it up beforehand, because then you'll have the wilty lettuce, is what I am thinking. Then, Carla Bernberg says, when I'm too tired to work out, I think of the phrase, what you can when you can. If all I'm able to do is a few planks or lunges or walk around the block, then that's okay. The phrase helps me remember that perfection doesn't matter. A friend and I even created a hashtag for it. Hashtag WYCWYC. What you can when you can. And it's taken off. So I'll search for that on Twitter sometimes to get some new ideas. How about getting ready for bed. Do you have trouble getting to sleep at night? Well, Julie Fagan from peanutbutterfingers.com says, whenever I'm having trouble falling asleep, I concentrate on relaxing every muscle in my body, starting at my toes, working up to the top of my head. First, I'll focus on relaxing my feet, then my calves, knees, thighs, and so on. It helps me chill out so quickly that I rarely reach my face. And then Janae DePatty of FatChickSings.com says, I make a big production about how excited I am to sleep. I put on my most fabulous, comfortable pajamas early and talk about going to bed like it's something awesome that I can't wait to do. This motivates me to get in there a little bit earlier. How about waking up and getting ready for the day in the morning? Well, Dr. Sizemore Ruiz says, don't wear sunglasses in the morning. Bright light in the morning sets your sleep-wake cycle, essentially telling your body, hey, it's daytime now, let me set my clock so I'll be tired in 12 to 14 hours. This also works wonders for people who feel excessively tired in the morning. Sunlight will help you wake up. Hey, and you don't need that expensive Starbucks or Peet's coffee to get you going. Not to mention, that caffeine is a chemical, and you maybe shouldn't put chemicals in your bod. Pressure changes. Here's another tip for your health, and that would be that awful ear pop, the one that your kids shriek about as when you're on a plane and you're starting to descend. It has a fancy name. It's called barotrauma. The air pressure in your middle ear is usually the same as the air pressure outside your body, but when you're landing, the cabin pressure increases. The outside pressure pushes your eardrum inward. Your eustachian tubes, which connect your middle ear to the back of your nose and throat, regulate air pressure, but they can't always react quick enough. So the result, serious discomfort happens. When a plane goes up, the reverse happens, but it's a lot less likely to cause pain. These symptoms can get worse if you have a stuffed up schnoz from a cold. Here is the tips that you should take according to health.com to help that. Take a big yawn, chew gum, or suck on a hard candy. These actions pull the muscles that open your eustachian tubes and equalize the pressure on down on you. Alternatively, try the Valsalva maneuver, which is where you pinch your nostrils shut. Okay? Hey, I actually sound better like this. Close your mouth and force air into the back of your nose as if you're blowing it. Ow!
Now we're up to talking divorce, and we weren't even married.
Divorce. Well, here's something else that has to do with health, and that is Until Decorating Do Us Part. This article I read in the New York Observer, and I found it fascinating. Let me quote from it. Major home renovations tend to reveal, rather than repair, the ruptures in a relationship, magnifying not only the weaknesses, but also the strengths. New York City is littered with properties who owe their existence, or at least their current configurations, to a relationship that has since fizzled. Troubled real estate that, as contractors, lawyers, brokers, architects, appraisers, and decorators can attest, becomes the embodiment of a failed relationship, a place where the psychological battles of a disintegrating marriage are played out in physical form. Of course, in New York, where real estate is arguably what makes the city's cold heart beat hardest, the dream homes at the center of so many divorce disputes are not only sentimental artifacts, but also multi-million-dollar pawns. It goes on to say that as you move up in price, there is a high probability that a renovation was either very recently completed or is about to be completed, and usually they own a second home. Appraiser turned data guru Jonathan Miller told the New York Observer, estimating that roughly half the residential appraisals that he does involve divorce. It just seems to be the straw that broke the camel's back, he says. Marley Oakes, a New York-based psychologist, said, any connection is likely not a coincidence. In a last-ditch effort to convince themselves that a marriage is viable, people often move forward on a big plan. But when people envision their dream marriage and their dream home, they don't envision all the mundane details. And in the renovation process, many of them realize that they don't want to be so intertwined with that other person. Relationships on the rocks have a tendency to produce properties that don't recoup their investments. The appraiser turned data guru Jonathan Miller also says the collaborations of feuding or increasingly distant couples often fail to live up to expectations. They tend to be of high quality and well done, but in many cases they're excessive. Too much detail, too many built-ins, super high-tech entertainment systems and lighting, antique doorknobs on every closet and door cabinet. It just strikes you as a bit over-the-top, overkill, not crazy, like Ming vases built into the wall. But when we ask what they spent, it's always at the high end of the range for that size of apartment, says Mr. Miller. It strikes me as a disconnect or throwing money at the problem. So maybe make sure that that marriage is solid before starting that renovation. And definitely before having kids. That's my health tip for you. A song written by Burt Bacharach. As we go outside of the last place on earth where we bring you Mike's Daily Podcast, somewhere in Podcastro Valley, California. And for some reason, my brain will never forget that. And that makes me a little sad.
And here's today's podcast picture.
The picture is a wonderful one of Basil the Boxer and I. Oh, Basil, you haven't been on the show in a while. Even though I told some people that I ran into on the streets of Podcastro Valley, California, when they met you, I said, yeah, this is Basil the Boxer, and here's my show, Mike's Daily Podcast, and he's on it all the time. I'm sorry, Basil. You're right, you definitely need more airtime. So there's a picture of him and myself, and we're standing in front of that Pilar Point over there by Mavericks in Half Moon Bay, by that marina there. It's fantastic, the Pilar Point Marina. Very beautiful. There's some cool restaurants around there, too. And the sun was setting. It was a nice shot. And I'm wearing my Space Invaders t-shirt. Check it out, MIKEs-DAILY-PODCAST.com. It will move your world. Mike Matthews, the deluge hasn't happened yet. Yeah, it hasn't, guys. So I think your arc was for naught. Although it does look really awesome out here in the arcing lot. Yes, Mike, we've decided now instead we'll have people pay for tickets to take a tour of the Ark. Oh, that's really cool. There's one condition, though. What's that? They have to go on 2 by 2. Oh, you mean like 2 at a time? No, they have to find someone that looks exactly like themselves, and then they can go on the Ark. That was my idea! You know, I never found those Jennifer Connollys we're talking about. Yeah, I made that up. Did you make up the Russell Crowes, too? Yeah, I made that up, too. You're such a liar. No, I'm not. I was just using creative licensing. Ah, okay. Tomorrow we will bring you the return of the segment Into an Interview, and we will be talking to an amazing, innovative singer-songwriter by the name of Ed Roman. He's from Canada. We'll also hear from Benita, the Disgruntled Fiddle Player, and the Brewmaster. I don't want to pay for my smartphone's plan anymore. It's just a waste of money. Even though you can do all this stuff like check your emails and have all these cool apps that give you the weather, and you can listen to podcasts too. Martin Cooper's right. I want my cell phone to be tailor-made for me. Floyd, I don't think they can stick a mop onto a cell phone. Dang it!
Mike's Daily Podcast is written and produced and performed by Mike Matthews. His podcast is super easy to find. Download or listen to his show and read his blog at MIKEs-DAILY-PODCAST.com. Email Mike now at MIKES-DAILY-PODCAST@gmail.com. See you tomorrow. Bye!
That's a negative endorsement of the smartphone. I live alone.